It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday night in Manhattan, cold, wet, and uneventful, the kind of night that makes the city shrink into itself. The kind of night no one wants to die in, especially not alone. Especially not on the M19 bus. Nathan Cole hated closing shifts. The last run was always a graveyard of ghosts and forgotten drunks. But that night was different. That night, someone left a corpse in the rear seat and walked away like it was nothing. Rain splattered against the windshield in a slow, steady rhythm, like a clock ticking towards something awful. Nathan stood at the front of the mostly empty M19, tapping his pen against the clipboard. 11 passengers had disembarked at earlier stops. The last one, a young woman, hadn't moved. "Last stop, ma'am," he called out from the front. "Nothing." He stepped down the aisle. His boots squeaked on the damp rubber floor. The girl sat still, her head tilted toward the window, long black hair veiling half her face. A leather backpack rested on her lap, one hand curled loosely around a phone. "Hey, miss," Nathan said louder, stopping a few feet away. "You okay?" Still nothing. Nathan felt a chill slide down his spine. Something about her posture it was, too. Still. Too staged. He stepped closer and reached out, gently nudging her shoulder. She didn't stir. "Jesus," he whispered. He bent down and carefully brushed the curtain of hair from her face. Her skin was cold. Ice cold. Her lips had turned the color of overripe plums. Her fingernails, clutching the phone, were blue-gray. Eyes slightly open but unfocused. Vacant. Nathan stumbled backward, knocking his elbow on a seat railing. His voice cracked as he fumbled for his walkie. "Dispatch, this is bus 471M19. I have an unresponsive passenger, female, no pulse. I think she's dead." A long pause. Then static. Then a voice. "Hold your position, 471. NYPD, en route." It took the police 7 minutes to arrive. In that time, Nathan stood outside the bus, arms crossed, soaked in cold mist. The rain had thinned, but a heavy fog rolled off the Hudson, turning the street into a gray tunnel of silence. Yellow light from the terminal flickered overhead. The only other soul around was an elderly janitor sweeping cigarette butts, and even he had stopped to stare. Detectives showed up, first two of them. One male, tall and sharp-jawed. One female, shorter, with piercing eyes and a voice like dry ice. "Detective Moss," she introduced herself. "NYPD homicide." She climbed onto the bus, followed by her partner. They both stared at the girl. Moss leaned in close. Her gloved fingers checked the pulse point again. "She's gone," she said simply. Her gaze swept over the scene. "Doesn't look like she struggled," the male detective muttered. "No blood, no trauma. Purse still zipped. Phone in hand." Moss nodded slowly. "Looks clean. Too clean." Crime scene unit followed. Cameras flashed. Swabs were taken. The body was moved only after dozens of photographs captured its stillness. The CSU techs whispered among themselves. Something didn't sit right. Back on the sidewalk, Nathan sat on a folding chair wrapped in a blanket. His breath came out in shaky clouds. "You were the only one left on board?" Moss asked him gently. "Yeah? Just me and her. She got on around 9:40, I think. Near Columbia. Never said a word. Did she speak to anyone? Anyone follow her?" Nathan shook his head. "She sat in the back, earbuds in. Looked like a student. I didn't think she was going to die." Moss crouched next to him. "You did everything right. What's your full name again?" "Nathan Cole." She scribbled it down. "We'll need to speak with you again later. Get some rest. Someone will drive you home." But Nathan didn't leave right away. He kept staring at the spot where the girl had sat, seat 32, rear right, by the window. Something about the way she was positioned nagged at him, like someone had posed her, deliberate, calm. And then there was her expression. Not fear, not pain, just silence. Back inside the bus, Moss stood alone now, watching as CSU zipped the black body bag shut. She looked down at the phone, recovered from the girl's hand. No passcode. Open screen. A text message blinked. "Drink this, baby. Just for me. One last time. For TZ. Julio NAJ. Moss frowned. One last time. Her instincts stirred, and her gut told her this wasn't over. Not even close. By 6:15 a.m., the medical examiner's office was already humming. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Cold metal tables gleamed. And Emily Tran body number 0473 lay motionless under a white sheet, tagged at the toe. Detective Rebecca Moss leaned against the wall with a black coffee in one hand and a file folder in the other. She hated mornings, hated morgues even more. But something about this case, it wouldn't let her sleep. "She's clean," said Dr. Marissa Bell, pulling down her mask as she approached. "No abrasions, no bruising, no signs of sexual assault. Tox screen still processing, but heart failure is the official preliminary." "Heart failure?" Moss raised an eyebrow. "She's 21. Exactly, perfectly healthy. Cardiac arrest at that age? Statistically microscopic." Dr. Bell pointed to the heart on the scan. "But it shut down fast. Massive collapse of the left ventricle." Moss flipped open the case file. "No history of heart issues. Non-smoker. Works out. Eats clean." "That's what makes it curious," Bell said. "If you're thinking poison, we're combing for that. But nothing obvious yet. No puncture wounds. No signs of injection." "What about oral ingestion?" Bell nodded slowly. "Possible. But she hadn't eaten anything substantial in the last 3 hours, except traces of milk, tea, tapioca pearls." Moss looked up sharply. "Boba tea?" "Exactly. Digestive enzymes suggest she drank it about an hour before death." Moss's mind clicked back to the text message. "Drink this, baby. Just for me." She swallowed hard. "Keep pushing the tox screen. Look for digitalis, cyanide, scopolamine hell, even belladonna. Anything that doesn't belong." Bell gave her a look. "You think this was staged?" "I think someone wanted it to look natural, like she just stopped." Back at the 32nd Precinct, Moss sat down with her partner, Detective David Rourke, a former Marine with a shaved head and a temper problem. He stared at the board of photos Emily's body on the bus, the untouched phone, the teacup found in her backpack's side pocket. "She was too clean," he muttered. "No struggle, no resistance, not even a tipped-over drink." "She never had the chance to struggle," Moss said, pacing. "She trusted whoever handed her that cup, drank it willingly, probably while believing it was the last peace offering from someone she still loved." Rourke nodded. "So who's the guy?" "His name's Ryan Mercer, ex-boyfriend. Dropped out of Columbia 2 years ago. No priors, but her roommate flagged him." "Flagged how?" Moss flipped through her notes. "Controlling. Jealous. Popped up outside their apartment a few times after they broke up. Left weird notes. Once hacked into her campus email to track her class schedule." "Classic stalker," Rourke said. "Got an address?" "Lives in Bushwick. Works as a field deck collector for a credit agency downtown. Still uses Emily's Netflix account, according to the roommate." "That's not love," Rourke grunted. "That's pathology." They paid the roommate a visit that afternoon. Cassandra Lee, 22, pre-law student, looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her voice cracked as she spoke. Emily was scared of him, but part of her still thought he could be reasoned with. "You know how that goes." Moss nodded. She knew exactly how that went. "He texted her Sunday night," Cassandra continued. "Said he wanted to talk one last time. Closure or whatever. He told her he'd bring her favorite milk tea, honey lavender." "Did she go?" Rourke asked. "She said she'd meet him in front of Sweet Boba on Amsterdam. Monday at 9. She never came home." "Did she seem nervous?" "She seemed sad," Cassandra whispered. "Like she'd already decided to let go, but not scared." "Not that time." Moss exchanged a look with Rourke. "We need access to the apartment. Any old photos, letters, digital messages between them, especially from the last 48 hours. That evening, Moss stood in Emily's room, staring at the walls. String lights, pinned postcards, a pile of untouched textbooks, a perfume bottle labeled Wild Jasmine. She picked up Emily's diary. Last entry, scribbled with uncertainty. "Meeting Ryan tonight. One last time. I want to believe he's not the monster people think he is." Maybe I need closure. Or maybe I just need to be sure I'm finally free. Moss closed the book gently. She wasn't free, she murmured. Not even close. The security footage from Sweet Boba arrived the next morning, pulled from an aging DVR unit behind the counter, time-stamped and grainy but usable. Moss and Rourke watched from the precinct's AV room, eyes fixed on the screen. 9:03 p.m. Emily walked into frame, hood down, hands stuffed in the pockets of her coat. Her expression was unreadable, tired, maybe, or just resigned. She approached the counter. Ryan Mercer was already there, waiting with 2 drinks in hand. He's smiling, Rourke muttered. Creep. Watch his right hand, Moss said. At 9:04, while Emily glanced down to adjust her sleeve, Ryan turned, leaned over the cup closest to her, and did something small, quick, barely noticeable. Paused. Frame by frame, Moss advanced the feed. There it was. A flick of the fingers, a glint of silver. Something dropped into the drink. Then he sealed the lid, shook the cup slightly, and handed it to her with both hands. She took it, smiled. No hesitation. They left together at 9:06 p.m., disappearing off screen. Moss leaned back in her chair, stomach tight. That's not kindness, that's calculation. They pulled traffic camera footage along Amsterdam Avenue, pieced together the night like a puzzle from orbit. 9:12 p.m., the pair walked east. 9:18 p.m., flagged down a rideshare car on 106th. Moss cross-checked the license plate with Uber's database. It matched a driver named Luis Reyes, 44. He picked up a passenger pair that night, female, late teens to early 20s, unresponsive. The male claimed she was drunk. He said it was his girlfriend's birthday, Reyes recalled, sitting in interview room 2, twisting his baseball cap in his hands. Said she had a few drinks and just needed rest. She didn't speak? Moss asked. She didn't move, Reyes replied. Head slumped back the whole ride. I asked if she needed help, but he said no. She does this when she's tired. That's what he told me. Where did you drop them? The Willow Inn over in Midtown. The Willow Inn was one of those hourly motels with bulletproof glass in the lobby and a front desk clerk who looked like he'd seen a few too many things he never reported. But he remembered Ryan, paid in cash. Used a fake name, James Carson. Said he'd lost his ID. Gave me a prepaid visa, room 412. Security footage again, Ryan entering with Emily hanging off his shoulder like a broken doll. She didn't move. Her eyes were closed. Time of entry, 9:39 p.m. Time of exit, 1:27 a.m. Alone. He walked out calm. Didn't rush. Didn't look back. Crime scene unit swept room 412. They found traces of vomit in the sink, faint chemical residue in the trash acetone, ammonia, but no blood. No visible signs of struggle. The sheets were freshly changed, the mattress flipped. Whoever had been there knew how to clean up. But not everything could be wiped away. Under the bed, tucked inside a cracked panel, CSU found a pair of used latex gloves and an empty pill blister pack labeled Digitalis lanata, a rare prescription heart medication derived from foxglove. Moss stared at the pack in the evidence bag. Digitalis, she said quietly. Bitter taste, causes cardiac arrest in high doses, undetectable after 12 hours. Rourke frowned. Where the hell does a guy like him get that? Moss didn't answer. She was already pulling up Ryan's online footprint. His social media pages were sparse, just a handful of photos, mostly filtered shots of coffee, gym mirrors, and sunsets. But his Reddit history, under the handle at N0exit21, told a darker story. Subreddits on perfect crimes, threads about seduction through control. A chilling post dated 2 months prior. If someone dies without pain, it's not murder. It's freedom. The body is still warm. You can make love to the idea of forever. Moss stared at the screen. Rourke clenched his jaw. He was fantasizing about this for months. He wasn't fantasizing, Moss said. He was rehearsing. That night, Moss drove out to Bushwick. Ryan Mercer's building was a crumbling 2-story walk-up with cracked red bricks and an old satellite dish pointing nowhere. She parked across the street and watched. He came home at 7:11 p.m., headphones on, gym bag slung over one shoulder, whistling. He didn't look like a killer, but Moss had long ago learned monsters rarely do. She didn't follow. Not yet. She wanted him to sleep, to think he'd won, because in the morning, they'd knock. And when he opened that door, he'd see her face and know it was over. 7:05 a.m., Ryan Mercer stepped out of his apartment wearing a fitted charcoal coat, earbuds in, sipping cold brew from a plastic cup with extra ice. The streets of Bushwick still smelled like last night's trash, but he moved through them like he belonged to a cleaner world. He smiled at his doorman, who wasn't there. He whistled as he unlocked his gray Nissan Altima. The gym bag slid into the back seat, the same bag he carried the night Emily died. Across the street, inside an unmarked black sedan, Detective Moss lowered her camera. "Clockwork," she muttered. Rourke yawned beside her. "He's not running. He doesn't think he has to." Ryan worked for a third-party collections agency in downtown Brooklyn, a glass-walled office filled with underpaid 30-somethings weaponizing debt. He sat in cubicle C12, headset on, dialing strangers with past-due loans and threatening them with lawsuits. But when he wasn't reciting scripts, he was reading. Articles about poison, about bodies found weeks later, about unsolved disappearances. Moss had already pulled his browser logs from his work computer. One stood out. "How long does digitalis stay in the bloodstream?" She stared at it. No VPN. No incognito. Just open, brazen curiosity. She wasn't looking at a man afraid of getting caught. She was looking at someone who thought he'd already won. They built the profile brick by brick. Ryan Mercer. Age 25. Only child. Father left when he was 8. Mother overinvolved, now estranged. Psychology major. Dropped out junior year. 2 previous girlfriends both filed temporary restraining orders that expired before court hearings. Neither wanted to revisit the past, but Moss called them anyway. The first, Caitlin, lived in Ohio. She hesitated at first. Then, he liked control. Told me who I could talk to. Tracked my location through apps. One time, he locked me in a room just to see how long I'd beg. The second, Carla, lived in Jersey City. She was more direct. He said love meant owning each other. But he didn't want me. He wanted to erase me. Moss scribbled down every word. A pattern was emerging, not just of possessiveness, but of precision. The kind that escalated. Emily wasn't an accident. She was inevitable. 2 days later, they got a warrant. Search and seizure for Ryan's apartment, vehicle, digital devices. The raid happened at 6:14 a.m., a coordinated breach with zero warning. Ryan opened the door shirtless, hair tousled, confused for exactly 2 seconds before the cuffs clicked. "Ryan Mercer," Moss said calmly. "You're under arrest for the murder of Emily Tran." He blinked. Just once, and smiled. The apartment was surgical. Minimalist furniture. Bare shelves. A row of books alphabetized mostly Freud, Jung, Nietzsche, and obscure philosophical treatises on moral relativism. On the nightstand, a journal. They seized everything. Inside the journal, I told her I would love her forever. She didn't believe me. So I gave her a version of forever she couldn't leave. Photos were paperclipped to the last page. Emily sleeping. Emily laughing. Emily walking alone, unaware. A shrine made not from candles but control. Moss sat across from him in interview room 3. He was still calm. Too calm. "You followed her for weeks. She needed closure," Ryan said. "So did I. You poisoned her. I freed her. You raped her after she died." He didn't flinch. "I made sure she'd never be touched by anyone else. Isn't that what love is?" Moss clenched her jaw. That's not love. That's possession." He leaned in. "Funny. That's exactly what she said to me the night before." Forensics confirmed it all. Digitalis in the boba teacup. Residue on the gloves found under the motel bed. Ryan's fingerprints on the pill blister. On the prepaid card. On the sheets. Video. Witnesses. A digital trail. It was airtight. But Moss didn't feel relief. Not yet. Not until the courtroom was full. Not until Emily's family saw him in chains. Not until the jury heard his words and looked him in the eye and knew this man didn't snap. He planned. Back in the office, Moss stared at the board, filled with photos and strings and notes. Her phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from Cassandra, Emily's roommate. Moss pressed play. Detective, there's something I didn't say. The night before she died, Emily told me she had a bad dream. She said Ryan was standing over her bed, whispering things, but our door was locked. I thought it was just anxiety. Moss froze. Ryan had been inside their apartment. He didn't wait to be invited back in. He let himself in days before the murder. He'd been watching, measuring, preparing. He didn't just kill Emily. He dismantled her safety, piece by piece, until death felt like surrender. Moss stood up, her spine burning cold. This case wasn't just about evidence. It was about evil. The interview room was cold by design. A square metal table, 2 chairs, one light overhead just bright enough to cast long, angular shadows. The kind of light that showed every twitch, every blink, every lie. Detective Rebecca Moss entered without her usual case file. She didn't need it. The evidence was overwhelming. The case, on paper, was closed. But what she wanted wasn't in the paperwork. She wanted to understand why. Ryan Mercer sat with perfect posture, not slouched, not slumped. His hands were cuffed, resting calmly on the table. His expression held a faint smile, subtle, irritating, smug. Sleep well? Moss asked, sitting across from him. Ryan tilted his head. Better than you, I imagine. And she ignored the jab. Let's talk about Monday night. I thought we already did. Number Monday night. You walked out of the Willow Inn at 1:27 a.m. alone. Emily was dead upstairs. Cold. Staged like she just drifted away. You don't get to hide behind euphemisms today. Ryan's fingers curled slightly around the edge of the table. Drifted is accurate. She didn't struggle. There was no fear. Because she was unconscious. Because she trusted me, he corrected. Moss leaned forward. Did she trust you when you laced her drink with digitalis? Did she trust you when you waited for her to die before undressing her? Did she trust you when you raped her corpse? He didn't blink. I loved her, he said. I gave her what she wouldn't give me while she was alive. Moss's stomach turned, but her face stayed still. Say that again. He stared at her. She withheld herself, played games, always pulling away, always running. So I made it simple. One moment, one room, one truth. No more resistance. Moss's voice dropped, almost a whisper. You're describing necrophilia like it's romance. I'm describing completion, he said. You people don't understand. You see a corpse. I saw clarity. Outside the room, Rourke stood behind the two-way glass, jaw tight, arms folded. Beside him, Assistant DA Jordan Becker was pale, jaw locked. He's not insane, Rourke said. He's aware, Becker nodded slowly. Jury's gonna hate him, especially when we play the motel footage. We need more, Rourke murmured. We need his voice, his confession, raw. No, I blacked out. No, I don't remember. Just the truth. In his own twisted words. Inside, Moss was already steering that very course. You made it look like a peaceful death, she said. Why the bus? Ryan's eyes brightened slightly, like she'd asked about his favorite song. The bus was perfect. Public, but anonymous. Quiet. No cameras in the back. I even wiped her fingerprints off the grab handles, just in case. Why not leave her in the motel? He scoffed. Too cliché. A girl found dead in a motel? Trashy. Predictable. But a student clean, brilliant found on a city bus. No trauma. No signs of violence. Now that's art. Art, Moss repeated. You think this was beautiful? In its symmetry, Ryan replied. In how no one noticed. Not the barista, not the Uber driver, not the front desk clerk. They all looked. None of them saw. That's the difference between people and me. I see. See what? How fragile everything is. Love, trust, life. One drop of the right poison, and everything folds. Moss went quiet. She let the silence hang like smoke. Then she asked the question that had haunted her since the first autopsy photo. Why, Emily? He didn't answer right away. Because she made me feel invisible, he said at last. Like I didn't matter. Like I was just a phase in her life she could delete. but I don't get deleted. So you made sure she'd never leave, Moss said. Ryan nodded, as if it were the most rational thing in the world. She left her mark on me. I just returned the favor. Later, when Moss stepped out of the room, the hallway felt colder. Rourke handed her a paper cup of burnt coffee. She didn't drink it. Did you get what you needed, he asked. She nodded. He wanted to be heard. I gave him an audience. That's all monsters really want, witnesses. Jury won't need more than 10 minutes, Rourke said. Let's give them 5, Moss replied. That night, Moss returned home and sat in silence for a long time. The case files lay on her kitchen table, untouched. Outside, Manhattan hummed subways groaning beneath the streets, taxis howling through lights, a city that moved forward no matter what died in the dark. She looked at the last photo of Emily Tran, smiling, unaware, full of promise. I'm sorry we didn't see him sooner, Moss whispered. Then she closed the file. But the image wouldn't leave her. Because some monsters don't crawl out of shadows. They smile across tables and wait for you to blink. Manhattan Supreme Court, Courtroom 7B. The first day of State of New York versus Ryan Mercer began under gray skies and a wall of press. Reporters pressed against barricades. Protesters held up hand-drawn signs, "Justice for Emily, no mercy for monsters." Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed above a packed courtroom. Families, journalists, students from Columbia. And in the front row, hands trembling, sat Hannah Tran, Emily's mother, her eyes red, locked forward, like glass about to shatter. Detective Rebecca Moss stood in the back, arms crossed. She hadn't worn a badge today, just black. Silent, watching. Ryan Mercer sat at the defense table in a navy suit and an eerie calm. No cuffs, no chains. Just a smirk so faint it bordered on contempt. Opening statements. The prosecutor, Ada Jordan Becker, rose slowly, walking with measured steps toward the jury. Emily Tran was brilliant, talented, loved, 21 years old. She was everything a mother dreams of, and everything this man believed he had the right to take. He pointed at Ryan. This is not a case of passion. It is a case of premeditated control, of manipulation so vile it extended beyond her death. He didn't just kill her. He used her body to complete the fantasy of domination he couldn't achieve while she was alive. Becker paused. He left no blood, no screams, just a message. She's mine, even in death. And now it's our turn to speak for her. The defense didn't deny the facts. They tried to reframe them. Ryan's attorney, a slick, sharp-jawed man named James Klein, stood, voice cool. This is a tragedy. That much is undeniable. But Mr. Mercer is not a monster. He is mentally ill. Diagnosed with borderline personality traits, obsessive tendencies traits that clouded his judgment. He loved Miss Tran, and when that love collapsed, so did his ability to cope. The jury didn't blink. Moss felt her jaw tighten. They always play that card, she thought, as if mental illness was a cloak you could pull over evil. The evidence unfolded like a noose. Day 2. Surveillance footage from Sweet Boba. Day 3. The Uber driver's testimony, his voice cracking as he recalled how limp Emily was. Day 4. The motel clerk. The footage from room 412. Day 5. Forensics, digitalis, fingerprints, gloves, the journal. Day 6. Moss herself took the stand. He didn't act impulsively, she told the court. He planned every step. He watched her, isolated her, poisoned her, and then staged her body to appear at peace. It wasn't peace. It was performance. She met Ryan's eyes. He didn't look away. Then came the hardest part. Emily's mother. The courtroom went still as Hannah Tran approached the stand, holding a folded photo and shaking hands. She was my only child, she said, voice ragged. She loved lavender tea and old jazz records and tutoring underclassmen for free. She wanted to be a writer. She was scared of him. She told me, but I thought it would pass. Silence. I failed her, Hannah whispered. And now all I have left is this trial. She unfolded the photo and held it up. Emily in Central Park, laughing, alive. I want the world to see her like this, not the way he left her. Final day. The jury deliberated just under 3 hours. When they returned, the courtroom stood breathless. We, the jury, find the defendant, Ryan Mercer, guilty on all counts. Count 1, first-degree murder, guilty. Count 2, aggravated sexual abuse of a corpse, guilty. Count 3, tampering with a crime scene, guilty. Judge Elena Marks stared down at Ryan. Her voice was clear, unshaking. Mr. Mercer, your crimes defy language. What you did to that young woman is beyond cruelty. It is beyond pathology. It is, in every sense, inhuman. You will serve a life sentence without the possibility of parole. And if the federal review allows, the court recommends consideration for the death penalty. Ryan didn't flinch. Moss watched his face. Not regret, not shame, only emptiness. Outside, reporters swarmed, cameras flashed. But Moss walked past them all. She didn't need lights or headlines. She only needed to see Hannah Tran, standing on the courthouse steps, eyes turned to the gray sky, holding her daughter's photo close to her heart. Moss stopped, removed her badge from her pocket, and handed it to the grieving mother. She mattered, Moss said. And this won't happen quietly again. Emily's journal entry was read aloud at her vigil that night. Real love doesn't require fear. If I ever forget that, I hope someone reminds me. Love should feel like freedom, not a locked room. Moss stood in the back, hands in pockets, head bowed. Justice had been served. But peace? That would take longer. Love is never ownership. When affection becomes control, when intimacy is used to manipulate, and when devotion becomes domination, it's no longer love. It's abuse. It's violence. It's a crime. Emily Tran didn't die because she was naive. She died because she believed that kindness from the past could redeem someone who had already turned love into a weapon. And the terrifying truth is there are many Emilys still out there, hoping, doubting, staying. This story isn't just about a deranged killer. It's about how easily toxic love hides behind charming smiles and familiar promises. Ryan didn't snap. He planned. Because in his world, a woman who walks away is a threat to control. Emotional manipulation is the prelude to violence. Jealousy dressed up as romance is a red flag, not devotion. And silence, our silence, is what lets monsters get close. People like Ryan don't wear horns or carry knives. They bring you flowers. They whisper, I miss you. They isolate you. Slowly, quietly. What this story teaches us, if someone loves you but makes you feel afraid, it's not love. If they demand obedience in the name of care, it's control. If you lose your sense of self to keep the peace, you're being manipulated. Don't romanticize jealousy. Don't excuse possessiveness as protection. And never trade your safety for someone else's insecurity. Learn to spot early signs of abuse. They need to know where you are, always. They get angry when you have a life outside of them. They make you feel guilty for how you feel. Final thought, real love doesn't demand fear. It doesn't need proof through suffering. It doesn't trap or isolate. If someone says, I love you, but makes you feel small, anxious, or voiceless, walk away. Don't wait until they kill you. With words, with silence, or with the final act of control disguised as love. Emily couldn't walk away, but you still can.